Now, Anacin, the tablets thousands of physicians and dentists recommend for fast relief of pain of headache, neuritis, neuralgia, and Bicidol mints that quickly rid stomach of gastric distress, present Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. It's time once again for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks, transcribed. But first, today many thousands of people are thankful to their physicians or dentists for first having introduced them to that remarkable preparation called Anacin, which brings such incredibly fast and effective relief from the pains of headaches, neuritis, and neuralgia. Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Anacin contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients in easy-to-take tablet form. Thus, in using Anacin, you are following sound principles. So ask for Anacin at your drug counter next time you suffer pains from headaches, neuritis, or neuralgia. Try these tablets on this guarantee. If you don't feel Anacin gives you all the relief you want, as fast as you want it, your money will be refunded. Easy-to-take Anacin tablets are available everywhere in handy boxes of 12 and 30, and economical family-size bottles of 50 and 100. I'll repeat the name for you, Anacin, A-N-A-C-I-N. From time to time, our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, has supplemented her meager bank account by writing articles for some of the country's leading publications.
Yes, indeed. Last year alone, I cracked the Hobo News, the Muscle Builders Gazette, and the American Plumbers Quarterly. But of all my articles, I was proudest of the one which appeared last week in True Family Romances, entitled, I Am the Mother of a Quiz Kid. Of course, I wrote this true family romance story under the assumed name of Dorothy Kimberly, and for three good reasons. One, the story was not true. Two, I don't have a family. And three, with Mr. Boynton for a boyfriend, I have very little romance. There was a fourth reason, too. If our beloved principal, Mr. Conklin, ever found my name in a magazine like that, I'm afraid mine would be just another friendly face on the unemployment line. By Thursday morning, my $50 check was long overdue from the magazine, so I thought I'd better ask my landlady if any mail had come for me that I didn't know about. Mrs. Davis.
Connie, I brought home several wallpaper samples from the store. Which of these do you like best for the living room?
Mrs. Davis, I expect a check.
No, dear, a check design makes me dizzy.
It might have come addressed to Dorothy Kimberly.
Dorothy Kimberly? Nothing came for anyone by that name. But who's Dorothy Kimberly?
That's me.
Now, sit right there, and I'll bring you a glass of water and some Anacin.
Mrs. Davis, it's really very simple. In an article in a magazine, I'm Mrs. Kimberly. You see, I'm married. I mean, she's married. Oh, it's Connie Brooks I'm not married, but it's Connie Kimberly. Dorothy Brooks. That is, in the article, we both are. Make that a glass of water and 2 Anacin.
Poor Connie, you are confused, aren't you?
Oh, no more than Dr. Jekyll confused Mr. Hyde. I'd better start at the beginning, Mrs. Davis. You remember that guest speaker I got last month? The author who lectured at school on the opportunities in the field of writing?
Oh, yes. Wasn't he the nice man who came over for dinner afterward? And when he left, most of our silverware was missing.
Oh, no. You're thinking of the fellow who lectured on the influence of crime shows on our children. Anyway, we recovered most of the stuff. But the writer I'm referring to mentioned that True Family Romances was paying $50 for stories concerning unusual family problems.
Oh, I see.
Well, I didn't tell you about it, Mrs. Davis, but that's when I became Dorothy Kimberly. That very day, I sat down and wrote an article entitled, I Am the Mother of a Quiz Kid.
My, there are a lot of things you haven't told me about. How old is your little youngster?
65, and he's now leading a retired life in Hoboken, New Jersey. Mrs. Davis, I'm not really the mother of a quiz kid.
Well, if you say so, dear. But I saw a copy of that magazine lying around a few days ago, and I read your story. You know, I enjoyed it almost as much as the one by Sarah Doolittle.
Oh, yes, the one called Bringing Up My Dopey Son.
poor Sarah Doolittle, how she suffered. You should thank goodness, Connie, that your boy turned out so brilliant.
Well, I had a very intelligent typewriter. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mrs. Davis, I'd better be leaving for school. Oh, I'll get it. Hello?
Hello, this is Mr. Nemo, the editor of True Family Romances. Is Mrs. Dorothy Kimberly there?
No, I'm afraid you have the wrong... Oh, yes, she's here. I mean, I'm here. We're here, all of us. I was expecting your check in the mails, Mr. Nemo. Are you certain you put a stamp on the envelope?
That's precisely why I called, Mrs. Kimberly. You see, our magazine has instituted a new policy of checking on the facts in all our stories before making payments.
Checking on the facts?
Yes. While I'm in town, I'd like to have a little chat with you and that quiz kid son of yours. Also with another one of our authors who lives in your vicinity, Sarah Doolittle. Now, what time would it be most convenient for me to drop around and see your son?
In about 15 years. I'm afraid little Joel will be unavailable for interviews today, Mr. Nemo. He's busy writing a child's version of Einstein's theory of relativity. Why don't you drop back some other year? A time.
Well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Kimberly. I'm going to be in town only one day, and unless I verify your story, there will be no payment.
Like I say, Mr. Nemo, drop around any time tonight.
Fine. I'll see you at 8 o'clock, Mrs. Kimberly. Goodbye.
Goodbye. $50. Oh, Mrs. Davis, this is terrible.
Goodness, Connie, are you in trouble? Is there anything I can do, dear?
Oh, I'm afraid not, Mrs. Davis. No matter how we tried, I doubt if we could pass you off as a bright little boy.
Daddy, I put 2 days of hard work into that article about you and Mother. And anyway, I wouldn't have sent it into True Family Romances without your permission. You had absolutely no right to tear it up.
Oh, didn't I, though? Harriet, I will not have my daughter writing for a cheap, trashy, fourth-grade publication whose current cover features the spectacle of a husband clasping his wife to his bosom with one hand and brandishing a meat cleaver with the other.
Daddy, all the other kids were writing articles for the magazine about their parents.
And that's exactly why a number of parents have been complaining to the head of the board about their lives being invaded, and why Mr. Stone has been pointing the finger of unemployment at me.
Well, it certainly isn't fair for Mr. Stone to blame you.
Well, of course it isn't. Particularly since your precious Miss Brooks brought that lecturer here in the first place. Oh, what did I do to deserve that woman? Some men occasionally get a view of heavenly paradise here on earth, but fate has sent me Miss Brooks to show me what it looks like elsewhere.
Well, it actually isn't her fault either, Daddy. She only books the lecturers.
Quiet. I think I see Miss Brooks clumping up the walk now. If you'll excuse me, Harriet, I want a word alone with Madison's crazy, mixed-up lecture bureau. Kindly depart through my inner office, child.
But, Daddy, can't I just wait?
Meander, minx.
All right.
Well, Miss Brooks should be through the front doors by now. Now she should be walking toward this office. Come back here, Miss Brooks.
Oh, yes, sir. It's a nice day, sir.
I doubt it. With you so close, there must be a monsoon brewing in the vicinity. Miss Brooks, why is it everything you touch turns to ulcers?
Why, sir? Have I done something wrong?
That's like asking, will dawn come up tomorrow? Miss Brooks, since you invited that madman here to encourage the literary efforts of our students last month, they have been besieging True Family Romances with a mountain of garbage. And Mr. Stone has placed the whole thing squarely on my doorstep.
Well, I'll call the Department of Sanitation at once and have them take it away. Oh, you mean Mr. Stone has been complaining to you?
Complaining? Why, yesterday he couldn't have called me more often if we were sweethearts. He told me he put 3 students at Clay City High on probation and suspended a history teacher simply for contributing stories to that awful magazine. Can you imagine what he'd do if an article were published?
Yes, I can, but it's too late for me to make the help wanted page in today's paper. I believe I can.
Needless to say, if another one of my students or any member of my faculty contributes to that publication, I will recommend immediate dismissal. You may go now, Miss Brooks.
How far? Yes.
Oh, I almost forgot. One more thing before you leave. I've just finished my monthly report for Mr. Stone. Will you have any time to type it up for me during school hours?
No, sir, I haven't got a minute today.
I thought not. Therefore, I arranged to be at your house tonight at 8. You can type it then.
At 8 tonight? Oh, no, sir. 8's a very bad time. I can't possibly make it at 8. I have an appointment with my optometrist about my eyes.
Oh, you do love to put up a fight, don't you?
Please, Mr. Conklin, make it earlier or later. Say 10 o'clock. Can you come over then? How's 10 o'clock?
I'll tell you what we'll do, Miss Brooks. I want to be at your house at 8. You want me to be there at 10, so we'll compromise.
Oh, good. Compromise, that's it. Compromise. Thank you, sir.
I'll be there at 8:05.
But, sir...
I'll be there at 8:05, Miss Brooks. Now, is there anything I can do for you before I come over?
No, sir. Even if you shaved off your mustache and wore short pants, you wouldn't do either.
Friends, if you suffer from acid indigestion, I hope you didn't miss reading this wonderful news. A headline that says, "New mints, medically proven, quickly rid stomach of gastric distress." That headline is talking about new Bicidol mints. Doctors recommend Bicidol mints because the Bicidol medication acts at once to make painful acid harmless and gives you fast 5-way relief. 1, speeds relief from gas. 2, sweetens your breath. 3, gives complete, longer-lasting relief than baking soda. 4, relieves stomach upset from too much eating, drinking, smoking. 5, lets you sleep when acid indigestion strikes at night. So don't suffer acid indigestion, heartburn, or gastric distress from excess acidity. Remember, new mints, medically proven, quickly rid stomach of gastric distress. And remember the name, Bicidol mints. Bisodol. Get Bicidol mints for fast relief. Well, Miss Brooks is in quite a dilemma. At 8 o'clock tonight, Mr. Nemo, editor of True Family Romances, is due over at her house to verify whether she really is the mother of the quiz kid. And 5 minutes later, Mr. Conklin is coming over with some typing work. Since the magazine has been declared out of bounds, if Mr. Nemo and Mr. Conklin cross paths tonight, Miss Brooks is in danger of suspension. And with Mr. Conklin, that could mean from a tree. Just before noon, Madison High's principal was busy at his desk when his phone rang.
Hello, principal's office. The principal himself speaking. Speak quickly, please. I lunch in 2 minutes, and I'm famished.
Excuse me, sir, but am I speaking to a school?
Don't be ridiculous, sir. You're speaking to a man. Oh, yes. Yes, this is Madison High School. Who is this?
My name is Mr. Nemo, Joshua Nemo. I'm from True Family Romances. I have a check for a Sarah Doolittle. Does she work at your school?
Sarah Doolittle. Excuse me a moment, please. Now then, I am Sarah Doolittle.
Look here, I don't have time for joking.
Oh, I'm not joking. Sarah Doolittle is the name I use on my articles. It's my wife's name. I'm Osgood Doolittle. Now, you may forward the $50 check for my current article.
Just a moment, Mr. Doolittle. Because of a little difficulty we've had recently, our current policy is to withhold checks until after we've verified the facts in an article. Well, shall I drop over to your place, say at 9, to deliver your check and meet the lad?
No. That'll be impossible. Maybe I could have him speak to you on the phone.
Mr. Doolittle, I'm sorry, but that's the way it must be. No interviews, no $50 check.
Oh. 9 o'clock, eh?
Yes, and please make sure Ronald is home.
Never fear. He'll be home. If I have to look all over town to find him.
Miss Brooks, you do have a problem, but try to forget it until after lunch. After all, that pie a la mode cost you 25 cents. It looks awfully good, too. It'd be a pity to waste it.
Stop punching, Mr. Boynton. It's yours.
Well, all right. Say, there is a way you could get rid of Mr. Nemo before Mr. Conklin arrives tonight. All you need to do is show him your young son.
Mr. Boynton, if that's a proposal, you're a little late. Where could I pick up a 14-year-old quiz kid by 8 o'clock? That's one thing Sherry's department store never runs a bargain sale on.
Oh, it isn't as difficult as...
Salutations to Madison's two most illustrious beacons of learning. One a gentle rose reaching up to the sun, and the other a mighty tower of strength.
I'll toss you for who's the rose, Mr. Boynton. Walter, we're rather preoccupied at the moment, so if you don't mind,
Say, wait a minute, Miss Brooks. Walter might be just what you're looking for.
Just what I'm... Oh, yes. He might be at that.
I think he might.
Yeah, I'm sure I might. But what?
Walter, how would you like to be my son?
Yeah, what? Your son? Well, it's okay with me, Miss Brooks, but I don't know how my parents are going to take it.
Oh, it's only for tonight, Walter, for a few minutes around 8 o'clock. You see, under the name of Mrs. Dorothy Kimberly, I wrote an article for the True Family Romances called I Am the Mother of a Quiz Kid. And now the editor's coming to verify my story before he'll pay me for the article.
Oh, I get it. And you want me to play the quiz kid. Well, gosh, do you think anyone would ever believe it?
He might, if he doesn't get a look at your marks.
Well, all right. If it'll help you out, I'll do it.
Oh, thanks, Walter. And one more thing. You know how Mr. Conklin feels about that magazine, so our little plan will have to be a secret between us.
From now on, it's strictly in the family. Well, see you later at your house, Mom.
And please be on time.
Oh, gosh, the situations women get themselves into. Me, a quiz kid. Boy, that's really one for the book. Mr. Conklin, what are you doing crouching behind that water cooler?
I was behind the water cooler, wasn't I?
Yes, sir. And the way you kept bobbing your head up and down, you looked like you were going down for the third time. Going down.
To get away from that cackle, I almost wish I had. But I happen to have a little favor to ask of you.
A favor? Well, what kind of a favor, sir?
Denton, that is, Walter. How would you like to be my son?
Holy cow, it's an epidemic.
Oh, it's only for a short while around 9 this evening. I'm merely playing a little practical joke on a friend of mine, Mr. Nemo. You see, about a year ago, I told him I had a dopey son.
A dopey son?
Yes. I can't think of anyone who'd fit the part more admirably. You will help me out, won't you?
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Conklin, but I can't tonight. I just made an appointment for 8 o'clock, and at 8:30 I promised to take your daughter to a movie.
Well, tonight, for a change, she'll go alone and see the picture, and I'll make certain that you don't see Harriet any other night this week, unless you decided to climb upon my knee, sonny boy.
You want me to be over at your house at 9 o'clock tonight? Well, all right.
Good. I thought you'd see things my way. Better be at my place at 9:15, Denton, and I need hardly tell you to keep the whole matter a closely guarded secret. Goodbye, son.
Goodbye, Daddy. Now, let's see. I have to be a dopey son for Miss Brooks and a quiz kid for... Oh, no, that's wrong. I'm Mrs. Kimberly's quiz kid. Or did Miss Brooks want me to play a dope? Oh, gosh, the problems of adolescence will kill me yet.
Our Miss Brooks will return in a moment. Radio is as adaptable as it's possible to be. Radio sits on the porch as comfortable as Grandpa. Radio can fare forth into the backyard and keep the green thumber company in his garden. Radio can nestle in an attic corner and keep things lively during spring cleaning. Radio can liven the basement workshop as readily as the parlor, bedroom, or kitchen. Not only that, but radio rides a car as slick as a hot rodder can and loves the beach. Seaworthy. People have been known to be seasick. Radios, never. Some people are afraid of high places. Radio loves high places. Weather affects people, but not radios. Hot or cold, dry or damp, radio's available on request. And naturally, radio performs by day as well as by night. Listen while you work. Try it tomorrow. Try it every weekday. And CBS Radio will be happy to make you acquainted with a great family of daytime shows America listens to most.
Unknown to each other, Mr. Conklin and Miss Brooks have each written an article for True Family Romances. And also, without the other knowing it, both have asked Walter Denton to act as their son to authenticate their articles. The only trouble is, for one, he must play a dopey kid, and for the other, a quiz kid. At her house later that evening, Miss Brooks is waiting tensely for Walter to arrive.
It's 2 minutes to 8, Mrs. Davis. Where can Walter be? He should have been here by now. Mr. Nemo will be here any minute. And what if we can't get rid of him before Mr. Conklin arrives?
Connie, control yourself. Don't be so nervous.
Nervous? Me? Me nervous? I might be impatient, but I never get nervous. How can you say I'm nervous? I wonder what's keeping... Oh, I'll get it, Mrs. Davis.
Hello, I'm Mr. Nemo.
Oh, won't you come in? I'm Mrs. Kimberly.
It's a pleasure. Well, Mrs. Kimberly, I got here on time.
Yes, and I hope to get you off on time. That is, knowing you're a busy man.
Yes. I do have to chat with Sarah Doolittle at 9. Now then, where is that wonderful quiz kid you wrote about?
Joel? Oh, he's probably still in the school laboratory. I just know he's going to be a scientist. Do you know that yesterday a test tube burst during one of his experiments and sent a mushroom to the ceiling?
What? You mean he was...
He was boiling mushrooms.
You had me worried for a moment. But you promised to have him here this evening, Miss Kimberly.
Oh, he'll be home any minute. I asked Joel to pick up some bread on the way home, and he... Oh, there he is now. Hello, Joel, dear.
Yeah, I'm home, Mommy. I'm home.
Who is this?
Joel, put down that yo-yo. And what kept you so long? I sent you for a loaf of bread 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I couldn't finish the loaf any quicker, Mommy. Oh, who's the nice man, Mommy?
Oh, this is Mr. Nemo, dear. Shake hands with the gentleman, Joel.
How are you? He bit me in the hand.
Well, one loaf of bread is hardly enough for a growing boy.
Ooh, nice man. Nice man.
Joel, you don't have to put your eyeball against Mr. Nemo's mouth to see him. Now go inside and bring some fruit for the table.
You all right, Mommy?
Miss Kimberly, that's a quiz kid?
I guess he's been slightly over-quizzed lately.
Doesn't sound possible. He seems, if anything, a bit backward.
Yes, well, you see, he's sort of a backward quiz kid. By that, I mean he works so hard at his books all day, toward evening his brain begins to wander a little.
Seems to have left the country. I'm sorry, Mrs. Kimberly. That wasn't a kind thing to say.
Oh, that's all right. Well, it's almost 10 after 8, Mr. Nemo. Time is flying, and you do have that appointment with Sarah Doolittle, so why don't you just give me the check? Go out the back way. Excuse me for a moment.
Hello, Miss Brooks.
Sorry, no brushes tonight. Thanks. Bye.
A brush salesman? Well, what's he doing out this time of night?
Maybe there's nothing good on television. Oh, this fellow just won't take no for an answer.
Miss Brooks, why did you slam that door against my nose?
I'm sorry, sir, but we make all our own brushes. Bye.
Hold it! Are we suffering from a nervous breakdown, Miss Brooks, or are we begging for one? I've never seen you resist a typing assignment with so much... Oh, you have company. Well, aren't you going to introduce us?
Mr. Nemo, this is Mr. Conklin.
Nemo? You're Mr. Nemo?
Why, yes, Joshua Nemo. Say, don't I recognize your voice from someplace?
My voice? No, I'm sure you're mistaken. Well, Miss Brooks, I must be going, must be on my way.
But, sir,
I must leave at once if I'm going to sell my full quota of brushes tonight. Now, if you just...
Well, I got the fruit and I'm back, Mummy.
Well, see you all again.
Daddy, you're home.
Daddy?
You're my papa to me is so wonderful.
Oh, Gad, I've been ambushed!
Now, wait a minute. Now I recognize the voice. You're Sarah Doolittle.
Mustache and all. Well, so you're Sarah Doolittle.
But just whose son is this? Mrs. Kimberly here says he's hers.
Hello, Mummy.
And at the same time, Mr. Doolittle also has a claim on him.
Hello, Daddy.
Is he a Kimberly or a Doolittle?
Both.
Both?
He's a Kimberly Doolittle. You know, like Kaiser Fraser, Sears and Roebuck.
Like Cock and Bull.
I did, and it fits.
Yes, I thought so. Well, I don't remember ever having enjoyed a night at the theater so much. And I think we can just forget about those $50 checks. Good night, whoever you are.
Oh, you are Dorothy Kimberly, eh? Of course, you realize, Miss Brooks, that I am bound by duty to report you to Mr. Stone and recommend severe disciplinary action.
You are, Sarah?
You are, Daddy?
Now stop that! On the other hand, we might consider the whole episode philosophically as a sort of exciting experience which we need not necessarily share with Mr. Stone, eh, Miss Brooks?
My vote goes to the exciting experience. But, Mr. Conklin, I thought of a follow-up article you might try writing, and this time you could prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Article? What sort of an article?
A little number called How I Brought Up My Backward English Teacher.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, is produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Arthur Alsberg and Lou Derman, with the music of Lud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon. Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Bob Rockwell, Gloria McMillan, and Joel Samuel. Be sure to be with us next week for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. Now, Anacin, the tablets thousands of physicians and dentists recommend for fast relief of pain of headache, neuritis, neuralgia, and heat, the liniment that's strong yet does not burn, present Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. It's time once again for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks transcribed. But first, believe anything you like about what this or that way to relieve pain of headache, neuritis, or neuralgia will do for you. But there is one important fact you can't get away from, and that is thousands of users of Anacin have been introduced to this remarkable product through their own physicians or dentists. These people know how incredibly fast and effectively Anacin acts to relieve pain. Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Anacin contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients in easy-to-take tablet form. Next time you suffer from the pain of a headache, neuritis, or neuralgia, don't wait for relief. Try Anacin. You'll be delighted with these tablets' incredibly fast action. Try Anacin on this guarantee. If the first few Anacin tablets do not give you all the relief you want, as fast as you want it, return the unused portion and your money will be refunded. All drug counters have Anacin in handy boxes of 12 and 30 tablets and economical family-size bottles of 50 and 100. I'll repeat the name for you, Anacin, A-N-A-C-I-N. Most female teachers at Madison High School think of Mr. Boynton, the bashful biologist, as an extremely handsome, virile, irresistible individual. But our Miss Brooks, who teaches English there, can take him with a grain of salt.
In fact, I could take him with a whole spoonful. But why waste salt on a fellow who's too shy to toss in a little pepper now and then? Last Friday at breakfast, I foolishly provoked a discussion of the matter with my landlady. Honestly, Mrs. Davis, he's more attentive to his animals. Why, yesterday he hardly noticed me because he took his dog to school for the day. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. What can a dog learn in one measly day?
Serves me right for mentioning it. May I have some toast, please?
Oh, here you are, dear. It's like I've always said. If dogs could learn things as quickly as cats, this would be a much better world to live in.
For whom?
No, I'm serious. Take our cat Minerva. For the past week, I've been teaching her mathematics, and she's become a whiz at it.
Mathematics?
Just you wait and see. Minerva! Meow! Tell me quickly now, how much is 2 and 2? Meow! Ah, that's a good girl. Well, I'll gather up the dishes now.
Just a minute. 2 and 2 equals meow?
Certainly. There are 4 letters in meow, aren't there? That's her way of telling me that the answer is 4. 2 meows equal 8. 3 meows equal 12, and so on. Oh, it's funny, though. She isn't so hot on the odd numbers.
Look, Mrs. Davis, I started this conversational maze with the simple statement that Mr. Boynton brought his dog to school yesterday.
Well, Connie, then it's simple.
What's simple?
You should do something to show Mr. Boynton how much you love animals.
Like what?
Well, why don't you take Minerva to school with you today?
Oh, let's not be ridiculous, Mrs. Davis. I couldn't possibly take Minerva to... Well, come to think of it, Mr. Boynton is extremely fond of cats. It might make a hit at that. You think she'd behave herself in my classroom?
Of course she would. She can stretch out on the seat cushion I ordered for your classroom.
Seat cushion?
You mentioned how trying it is sitting on that hard chair all day. So I thought I'd surprise you.
Oh, that's very sweet of you, Mrs. Davis.
Don't mention it. I mailed a letter last night telling the store where to send it, along with another note to the place where I ordered Victor's gift.
Your brother Victor?
Yes. He's every bit as fond of animals as Mr. Boynton is. That's why I bought one for him yesterday.
Oh, that's nice, Mrs. Davis. What did you get him?
A cow.
A cow?
Yes. It's a female.
Those are the best kind. But why on earth would you
Victor just moved into a little farmhouse on the edge of town, Connie. It's only a 15-minute drive from here. By and by, he'll be adding more livestock, of course. But right now, with just the one cow, I figured he'd have his hands full.
He will if he plays his cards right. Well, I'd better dash off to school, Mrs. Davis. I'll have to use all my powers of persuasion to get Mr. Conklin's permission to take Minerva into class with me.
All right, dear. Just put Minerva into this valise I bought for her at the pet shop. It's a cat carrier. You might leave the lid open for her, though.
Oh, that won't be necessary. There are holes in the side through which she can breathe. In you go, Minerva. Here, I'll give you a hand. Oh, that's what I like about Minerva. She's so polite. Whenever you help her out, she always says 4.
You may be principal of this school, Osgood Conklin, but as long as I am head of the Board of Education, you will take orders from me. Is that clear?
Quite clear, Mr. Stone. Crystal clear. Couldn't be clearer. You are also...
Silence!
My lips are sealed.
Why, when I saw that dog running loose outside the biology lab yesterday, I was shocked beyond words. You know that animals aren't allowed on school property, Osgood. How did it get in here? Answer me.
Well, I haven't the slightest idea, sir.
Well, let's make certain that no dogs invade the school today. First, you will make an early inspection tour of all classrooms. Then I want you to post a guard at the front door throughout the day.
But, sir, why commission someone to do a job for which I myself am ideally suited? I'll keep a weather eye open, sir. You may be sure no animal will get past me. Come in.
Good morning, Mr. Conklin. Oh, hello, Mr. Stone.
Good morning, Miss Brooks. Are you, going somewhere?
Going some... Oh, this valise. If I may ask your permission, Mr. Conklin.
Permission for what?
Well, you'll see as soon as I open the bag. It'll just take me a minute. Excuse me, Mr. Stone.
Go right ahead. Glad you dropped in, Miss Brooks. Perhaps you can shed some light on the identity of the culprit who dared to bring an animal into this school yesterday.
An animal, Mr.
Stone? Specifically, a dog. When I saw it romping around outside the biology lab, I came in here to report the incident to Mr. Conklin. When I returned to the spot, it had vanished.
Good. Some of those spots stay on forever. I'm afraid I can't be of much help to you, Mr. Stone. You see, mine is an English class, and I'm not one of those who are, I should say, in the habit of hanging around other labs. The labs of others, I mean, so I couldn't really shed any light on the identity of which the dog belonged to who. Whom?
And exactly how long have you had this English class, Miss Brooks?
You bet. Well, please forgive my faulty syntax, Mr. Stone. The thought of a beast on the premises has frazzled my nerves a bit. Well, goodbye now.
One moment. You were going to open that bag, remember?
Bag? What bag? Oh, the bag. Oh, well, you really wouldn't want to look at what's in this bag, sir. It's nothing but...
What was that?
I said I'll run along now and meow. Meow, that's a new expression some of the kids use. It's real cool, I think. Meow. Instead of saying goodbye, they say meow. Silly, isn't it? Sometimes I stretch it out with a little western drawl. Well, meow now, Mr. Stone. Meow, Mr. Conklin. Meow.
Now, that was mighty peculiar behavior. She galloped out of here like a frightened antelope.
Yes, and it's my guess that right now she and her western drawl are loping over to the old bunkhouse in Mr. Boynton's lab.
Oh, hello there, Miss Brooks.
Howdy. Please sit down, Mr. Boynton. We've got a little palavering to do.
Well, can it wait, Miss Brooks? I was just on my way to the cloakroom to feed Geraldine.
Geraldine?
You know, my dog. She's a boxer.
And if Mr. Conklin drops in, she'd better come out fighting. That's what I came to warn you about.
Warn me?
Yes, he's on an anti-animal kick. Mr. Stone happened to see Geraldine in the hall yesterday, and he was furious. Luckily, he doesn't know who her owner is yet.
Gosh, I guess I should have asked Mr. Conklin's permission. Oh, but there's little chance of my dog being discovered in here, Miss Brooks. Mr. Stone rarely comes into my lab. The same goes for Mr. Conklin.
Oh, well, then maybe my cat can hide out here for the day.
Your cat?
Yeah, I'll let her out of the bag. I certainly wouldn't want Mr. Conklin to find out I'm a cat rustler. Out you come, Minerva. You won't mind taking care of her for me, will you, Mr. Boynton?
Oh, not at all. Come here, baby.
All righty. Oh, you mean her.
I'm crazy about cats, Miss Brooks. Why, the minute I see one, I can't resist nestling it in my arms and stroking its little head.
Meow. Now, Mrs. Davis ordered a seat cushion sent to my class today, Miss Boynton. I'll bring it over so that Minerva can stretch out in comfort.
Oh, that'll be dandy. I saw Mrs. Davis at the movies last night, and she told me about her brother Victor's farmhouse and that she's buying him a cow. I just love cows, don't you?
Madly. Oh, I love all animals, Mr. Boynton.
You know, sometimes I get to thinking about my childhood days on Dad's farm, Miss Brooks. Oh, I miss those days a lot. I hope Victor asks me out to his farm someday.
We can both go out someday. Some night, I mean. Some night when Victor isn't home. We can stroll in the meadow, hand in hand, with the moonlight pouring down.
Sure, that sounds pretty thrilling. Do you think Victor would let me milk his cow?
We can both milk her. You take the left side, and I'll take the right side, and I'll be homogenized before you. Oh, great. Speaking of milk, has evidently whipped up Minerva's appetite. Steady, Minerva.
Mr. Conklin.
Yikes.
At ease. I hope you'll forgive this intrusion, Boynton. I just dropped into... Oh, hello, little pussycat. I say I just dropped in to make certain there are no dogs in here. Not that I suspect you, Boynton, but I just thought I'd take a look around. Well, I don't see any dogs on the premises. No dogs at all. Sorry to trouble you. I'll just run along now and... Hello, little pussycat!
I have it. Let's all play charades. I mean, there's still a few minutes before first class, so just for kicks...
That will do. Out with it now. To whom does this cat belong?
Cat? What cat? Oh, the pussycat. It's quite a pussycat, isn't it? Silky. It's a girl cat, no doubt. Mr. Boynton and I hadn't noticed her.
Oh, that's right. She must have strayed in, sir.
Nonsense. Miss Brooks, I'm beginning to understand those phantom meows I heard in my office. Now then.
What are you doing to the cat's collar, Mr. Conklin?
I'm removing it, Miss Brooks. It'll be an easy matter to determine the person who owns her by simply checking the number on this license tag. That person, needless to say, is a dead duck. Goodbye, Boynton. Meow now, Miss Brooks.
Meow now? I don't quite understand that, Miss Brooks.
That's the farewell expression the kids use.
Meow? That's merely the cry of a cat.
So it is. Well, quack, quack, Mr. Boynton.
Quack, quack?
That's the cry of a dead duck.
Friends, when you suffer torturous pain from rheumatism, muscle strain, or backache, you want relief fast. That's the time to reach for Heat. H-E-E-T. Heat, the liniment that's strong yet does not burn. The moment you apply it, you can feel Heat's soothing warmth working to relieve your painful miseries. That's because Heat penetrates deep, brings immediate relief to sore, aching muscles. Wherever you ache, just brush on Heat. Heat penetrates deep, keeps working for hours to bring wonderful, soothing comfort to the painful, aching area. Your pain seems to disappear. Heat isn't oily, sticky, or messy. You just brush on Heat with a handy applicator that comes with each bottle, and it dries in seconds. So remember, when pain of rheumatism, muscle strain, or backache makes you miserable, Heat's penetrating warmth gives you fast, long-lasting relief. Get Heat, H-E-E-T. Heat, the liniment that penetrates deep to bring immediate relief.
Having heard nothing from Mr. Conklin during my morning classes, I presumed that he had not as yet traced the number on Minerva's license tag. As I left my classroom for lunch, however, the figure of a sentry armed with a BB rifle loomed up before me.
Halt! Step forward and be recognized.
It's me, Mr. Conklin.
Oh. Step back and be unrecognized.
Aye, aye, sir. And so, having been honorably discharged, I hiked down to the school cafeteria and ordered chow. It was then that Walter Denton beckoned me to his table.
Over here, Miss Brooks. Wilt thou not visit me? The plant beside me feels thy gentle dew, and every blade of grass I see from thy deep earth its quickening moisture drew.
I ordered meatballs. What have you got?
The same. I guess you didn't care for that bit of poetry I quoted, huh, Miss Brooks?
You guessed right, Walter.
Well, how do you like this one? You'd never have let the cat from the bag if you knew Mr. Conklin would grab her tag.
You're either psychic or a sneak. How'd you find out I'm up the creek?
Oh, that's a very provocative question, Miss Brooks. You will recall that shortly before first class this morning, our beloved principal invaded Mr. Boynton's lab and trapped you dead to rights with your furry friend.
With two furry friends. Mr. Boynton lost his razor.
Yeah. Well, at that time, I happened to be standing in the hall just outside the lab, and presently I heard excitement-laden voices wafted through the transom. Now, that was a moment of great decision for me, Miss Brooks. I could have either hewed to the path of dishonor by remaining in the hall and eavesdropping, or I could have taken the glorious avenue of decency by closing my ears and leaving the scene.
Well?
Yeah, I took the dirty road out.
For shame. But you still don't know all the details, Walter.
Au contraire, Miss Brooks. I was about to say that some minutes later, I confronted Mr. Boynton with the juicy morsels I had overheard, informed him that I should like to be acquainted with all the facts, and requested that he sing.
And he sang?
Ezio Pinza would have envied him.
Well, this is no laughing matter, Walter. When Mr. Conklin traces Minerva's license tag...
He didn't have time to trace it this morning, Miss Brooks, and it's too late now. Here is a little gift as a token of my esteem.
Walter, it's the tag. How did you get it?
Like I said, Miss Brooks, I'm pretty perfidious at times. When Mr. Conklin left his office for a few moments, I sneaked in, made off with the tag, and ever since then he's been flipping his lid wondering what happened to it.
But that's stealing. That's a dreadful thing to do, Walter, and thanks a million.
Yeah, well, you're entirely welcome. Yeah, only one thing worries me, Miss Brooks. Since Mr. Conklin can't establish ownership, he'll probably confiscate your cat and send her to the pound.
Oh, no. We can't let that happen to Minerva. Somehow we've got to spring her. I have an idea, Walter. You've got to sneak her out of the biology lab through the window and then take her to Mrs. Davis's brother's farmhouse. It's only a 15-minute drive from here, so you can report back to me in my classroom before the end of lunch period.
Check. I know a shortcut to the farmhouse, Miss Brooks. I helped Victor move some furniture in day before yesterday. Oh, before I go, I'd better stop at the steam table and get Minerva some milk.
That won't be necessary. If Minerva wants milk, why get it now? She'll get it at the farm, direct from the cow.
Miss Brooks will return in a moment. CBS News has always attempted to keep up with your need to know. As months of international tension have lengthened out into years, as America's position of world leadership has moved it into the forefront of decision and action on a global scale, CBS News has remained on the job with eyewitness observers in every strategic world capital. And CBS News has continued to build its reporting corps as well as its observing staff. Today, America listens most to the evening news broadcasts of four great newsmen, every Monday through Friday evening on most of these same stations. These men are Lowell Thomas, noted world traveler and lecturer; Edward R. Murrow, Dean of CBS News, recipient of numerous awards for his reporting, his integrity, his courage in world events; Douglas Edwards, one of America's most popular voices for CBS News; and Robert Trout, for years still another great name in CBS News. Tomorrow and every weekday evening, listen for each of these renowned reporters broadcasting world news at the Star's address.
Well, after Walter promised to sneak Minerva out of school to Victor's farm, the only problem remaining was what to do about Mr. Boynton's dog. In my classroom shortly after noon, I told Mr. Boynton what Walter had done.
Well, I doubt that he'll get back here before the end of lunch period, Miss Brooks. It's almost 1 o'clock now.
Excuse me, Mr. Boynton. I want to steal a little peek into the hallway. No sentry. Mr. Conklin apparently ducked out for a bite. Now's your chance to get rid of your dog.
Oh, I've already taken care of that. I simply lowered Geraldine out the window and told her to go home. She'll be lying on the doorstep waiting for me after school, Miss Brooks. You see, she's been trained. No matter where she is, she knows how to get to my apartment house.
So do I, but what good does it do?
Hiya, folks. I got your cat to the farm okay, Miss Brooks.
Nice work, Walter. Did you turn her over to Mrs. Davis?
Not exactly. She was out shopping when I got there, but I left Minerva with her brother Victor as soon as he got through with the delivery man.
Delivery man?
Yeah. Some guy was delivering a seat cushion.
What? But that cushion was supposed to be delivered to my classroom. Good old absent-minded Mrs. Davis.
Miss Brooks?
Yes?
A sign here.
For what?
For this.
Oh, no. Wait a minute, mister. This is a cow.
You got good eyes, lady. We give you the bucket free.
Gosh, a real cow. I haven't milked a cow in 14 years. Hand me that bucket, Walter.
Oh, no, you don't. This is no time to improve your handshake. Listen, mister, my landlady evidently got confused. There's been a dreadful mistake, but you'll simply have to take back this cow.
Oh, I'm sorry, lady. That'll take a separate order, and our company's jammed up for the day. Give them a call, though. Maybe we can take her tomorrow.
Well, you've got to be reasonable. You can't leave a cow here overnight. This is a public school under the supervision of the federal government.
Let's keep politics out of this. I gotta be going now. So long, lady.
Uh-oh, I just caught a glimpse of Mr. Conklin and his daughter Harriet coming up the school steps.
What'll we do? Mr. Boynton, cut that out.
Sorry, I lost my head.
Look in the bucket.
I'll see you later, Daddy.
Fine, Harriet. I'll be right here on sentry duty. No silly cat or dog is going to get past me today.
Boy, he's sure going to get a surprise from some silly cow.
Not if I can help it. Quick, close the door. Now listen carefully, Walter. I want you to stay here with the cow and see that absolutely no one enters this classroom. Then after school's over, when the sentry leaves, we can escape with the cow.
Yeah, okay, Miss Brooks, you can depend on me.
What can I do to help, Miss Brooks?
Just hand me that valise. The other one.
Steady, girl, steady. You're in good hands. 10 after 3, Walter. As soon as Miss Brooks gets back, we can...
Who goes there?
A friend. I'm unarmed.
Wait till I pull the chair away from the door.
Hi, Miss Brooks. See anybody in the hall?
Just Harriet Conklin. She was on her way to a dramatics club meeting. I saw Mr. Conklin getting into his car, so now's our chance to make the break. You men bring up the rear. We girls will lead the way. Come along, Bossy. Now, keep your eyes peeled, Walter. You too, Mr. Boynton. If you see anybody...
Holy smoke! Quick, push her in here. I'll open the door.
But, Walter!
No time to explain. In you go, Bossy. Come on. In.
All right, Walter. Now, would you mind explaining what we and a strange cow are doing in Mr. Conklin's office?
Well, I just saw Harriet Conklin coming down the stairs. Oh, but we're safe in here. She never comes into Mr. Conklin's office when he isn't around.
Oh, quick thinking, Walter.
Hi, Daddy. I thought you'd gone home.
I forgot something in my office, Harriet.
Whoops, he's around. Pipe down.
What on earth is going on in there? Well, I'll soon find out.
Back the cow into the closet. Hurry.
Come on, Bossy. Back.
Come on, in you go all the way. That's it. In.
Oh, now if she'll only stay quiet until Mr. Conklin...
Moon over Miami.
Oh, hello, Mr. Conklin.
Miss Brooks, Boynton, Denton, what are you doing here?
Well, sir, we were just... Moon of Monocura.
I demand to know what you are doing in my office.
Well, sir, we were just... Moonlight and
Is the song fest over now?
No, not quite, Mr. Conklin. Somehow I feel more coming on. I'm in the mood for love simply because you're...
Oh, shut up!
You all sound like a herd of sick cattle. For the last time, what are you doing here?
Well, sir, we just dropped in to say goodbye on our way home.
I left here 5 minutes ago, but I forgot my hat. I'll get it out of the closet, and we can all go together.
What an awful way to go. Oh, surely you don't need a hat on such a lovely day, sir. Why not skip the closet?
Step aside, Miss Brooks.
Yes, sir.
Pardon me, please. Take it easy. Take it easy. I just want to get my hat. Will you take a second? Seems to be on the floor. If I can just reach it. I've got it now. Oh, I am sorry. Now, if I can... Now I've got it. Now I can... Pardon me again, please. Will one of you kindly tell me that I didn't see what I just saw in that closet?
You've had a rough day on sentry duty, sir. Overwork very often causes one's mind to play tricks that are...
Oh, yes, of course. It's absurd. I'm convinced the whole thing was a mirage, notwithstanding the indisputable fact that my hat here, as you can plainly see, is half filled with cream. Just to reassure myself, however, I'd like to take another look in the closet. This time you will follow me, Miss Brooks.
Oh, it's rather late, Mr. Conklin. Let's do it in the morning.
You'll follow me now, Miss Brooks. And I do mean now.
Yes, sir.
Holy cow!
And you do mean cow.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Joe Quillen and Al Lewis, with the music of Lud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon. Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Bob Rockwell, Gloria McMillan, Joseph Kearns, Joel Samuels, and Billy Gould. Be sure to be with us next week for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks.
Here, our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, has constantly shown a rare genius for getting into the doghouse with her principal, Mr. Conklin.
I've gotten into it with him so often, he's even thinking of building me one of my own. But about a month ago, I was given an unexpected opportunity to redeem myself for all my mishaps during the past year. Mr. Conklin asked his teachers and students to volunteer for certain school projects, and he permitted me to take over his favorite spring project, the school garden. I was rather surprised at first until Mr. Conklin explained that the garden is 200 yards behind our school, and he needs that much space between us for self-preservation. Last Thursday morning, I decided to get up early and have a look at my handiwork before class. But as I went into our dinette for a quick cup of coffee, my landlady had a little surprise for me.
Connie, instead of bacon and eggs this morning, I fixed you something rare and exotic. How does it look, dear?
Indigestible. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Davis. That was unkind of me. You tell me what that stuff is, and I'll eat it.
Oh, it's only some arrowroot, papaya, kukui, and poha.
I still say you tell me what it is, and I'll eat it.
Here, these are Hawaiian fruits and vegetables. My neighbor, Mrs. Anderson, is vacationing in Honolulu, and she sent me a whole crate full of the stuff.
Tell you tell you the truth, I'm not really very hungry this morning anyway.
Oh, dear. I had a feeling you wouldn't go for this Hawaiian mess. But, Connie, if you tried it, don't you think you might get used to it?
Well, perhaps. Actually, you won't even need this stuff, Mrs. Davis. In another few days, I'm going to treat you to a batch of real fresh homegrown vegetables. Right out of the school garden that Walter Denton and I planted.
Oh, that's right. The inter-school gardening contest is in a few weeks, isn't it? But how do you know the vegetables will come up in time?
Oh, they'll come up, even if Mr. Conklin has to plant me underneath to push them up. He's really determined to beat out Jason Brill for the trophy this year, particularly since Clay's principal won the award last year. Oh, you never saw such a vegetable garden. Radishes, celery, tomatoes, spinach.
But what did Mr. Conklin's garden produce?
A half-acre of night-blooming jasmine. He bought the wrong seeds. Oh, he's warned me if I fail him in this project, I won't have an evening to myself the rest of the semester.
Oh, but Connie, that isn't fair. I'm sure he hasn't been that strict with the rest of his faculty.
Well, perhaps he doesn't have to be. So far, Mr. Boynton's done a good job handling the cafeteria. Miss Miller's tossed out most of the school rubbish.
What about Miss Enright?
I think Miss Miller missed her. You mean Miss Enright's project? Well, that one really confuses me. She chose as her project the care and feeding of Catherine, the school goat and mascot.
Well, maybe Miss Enright likes goats, Connie.
Well, maybe so. She's certainly been trying to get mine for years. Well, I don't suppose I'll get it, Mrs. Davis. Hello?
Miss Brooks? Walter, I have terrible news for you, Miss Brooks. Awful news. Disaster has finally struck.
What is it, Walter? What happened? You're not hurt, are you?
No, nothing like that. This is much worse. Much worse. Oh, this is terrible. Simply awful. I just went back to our school garden, and there isn't any.
No school garden? Not a thing? Walter, you don't mean it's completely barren.
Put 2 skulls there, Miss Brooks, and you've got Death Valley.
Yes, and I know just whose skulls Mr. Conklin will use for landscaping. That doesn't seem possible, Walter. You sure nothing came up?
Well, only one thing while I was there, Miss Brooks. You gopher.
Funny, that's the one thing we didn't plan. Well, I'll come right down and take a look, Walter. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Miss Brooks. And if you draw up a suicide pact, count me in.
Connie, I couldn't help overhearing you. What happened to your garden, dear?
It goofed. Well, now, I'd better get down to school at once.
Good morning to my old friend, the genial Miss Brooks.
That's 3 misstatements in the same sentence. Good morning, Miss Enright.
And you remember Catherine, our school mascot, Miss Brooks? I know Catherine remembers you. Don't you remember Miss Brooks, Catherine?
You won't get any argument out of me this morning, Catherine.
Oh, why so glum today, darling? Your mood hardly becomes that delightful, flowery spring hat you're carrying. You know, it seems I saw the exact duplicate on someone... No, not the exact duplicate. The hat on the horse's head had holes for its ears. Now, darling, I don't want to detain you. I imagine the reason you're back here is to catch up with Mr. Conklin. Catherine and I passed him just a moment ago on his way out to your garden.
Mr. Conklin? Mm-hmm. On his way out to the garden? Are you certain?
Of course, darling. You remember Mr. Conklin, don't you, Catherine?
My sentiments exactly. But he hasn't seen the garden yet. Maybe I can still head him off. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Oh, God!
He's seen it. Well, I guess that finishes me. But I still can't figure out what happened to that garden.
Well, maybe you should have had someone with a green thumb to help you, like me.
No, thanks. I would have spent half my time keeping your green thumb out of my blue eye.
I feel it's the least I could have done after the help you've given me with my project. In the month I've had Catherine in my custody, she must have put on at least 25 pounds. And I owe it all to you.
To me? But I didn't feed her.
Oh, but you did, darling. Every night for the past 3 weeks I've let her graze in your garden.
Huh? You let her graze in my garden? Then the vegetables did come up after all.
You were only long enough to go down Catherine's throat. Oh, how that animal can eat. I must admit, I helped her.
That must have been quite a sight. Two old goats grazing together in the...
Now, darling, let's not be bitter. Just resign yourself to the fact that you've been outwitted as usual. With your current project a failure, you will be working evenings for Mr. Conklin, and dear Mr. Boynton will have more time for me.
Oh, then that's the reason you volunteered to take care of our mascot. You planned this whole thing.
Like a general plans a campaign.
Well, if I had a medal, I'd know just where I'd like to pin it. But I still can't believe that one goat could eat that much.
Well, you just don't know Catherine. Why, she'll eat anything. I've seen her when... Darling, where did you put your hat?
My hat? Well, it's right here in my... Good grief. While we've been talking, Catherine's eaten it.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Well, I don't suppose there's any use worrying about that. Anyway, not with the trouble heading this way.
Oh, here you are, Miss Green Thumb. Miss Enright, would you please excuse us? I have something I want to say to Miss Brooks.
Certainly, Mr. Conklin. Say goodbye to Mr. Conklin and Miss Brooks, Catherine.
And a goodbye to you, Catherine.
I suppose you know where I've just been, Miss Brooks?
Yes, sir. You've seen our garden, and I'm back in the doghouse again.
In it? You practically own it, lassie. Miss Brooks, what happened to my garden?
Well, since no amount of talking could convince Mr. Conklin that our school goat had eaten up my vegetable garden, my only hope was for the goat to break out in a rash of Brussels sprouts. But with the school garden contest a mere 2 weeks away, and my funeral scheduled for the day after if we didn't win, at noontime, I decided to seek the advice of my favorite fellow teacher. Since the school cafeteria was his current project, I knew I'd find Mr. Boynton in the kitchen. So I went down there just before lunch, opened the door. Oh, my goodness. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Boynton. Mr. Boynton? Mr. Boynton, where are you?
Down here, under the goat, Miss Brooks.
Oh, I'm awfully sorry. Here, let me help you out. Well, luckily nothing happened to your new white suit.
It's my old blue serge. I was milking Catherine. Well, since Catherine, the goat, is the school mascot, I thought maybe I'd introduce goat's milk on the menu and let the students try it. What do you think of the idea?
After one taste, the new school mascot will be Elsie the cow. It's a shame the milk spilled all over you, though.
Oh, there's no great harm done. My suit was old anyway, and I can wipe the milk off with this towel. Luckily, nothing happened to my new Panama hat. You like it, Miss Brooks? Walter Denton said he thought it was real nervous.
I'm in trouble again.
Trouble? What kind of trouble, Miss Brooks?
Well, that goat ate up Mr. Conklin's garden.
Ate up the garden? Well, Miss Brooks, no goat could eat that much.
Mr. Boynton, that goat didn't put on 25 pounds in the last month due to an underactive thyroid. You see, Miss Enright purposely turned her loose to graze in order to...
I can't believe it, Miss Brooks. Miss Enright may have her little faults, but she certainly isn't a vandal. No, I'm sure that you're...
I am, dear Mr. Boynton, to pick up... Oh, my goodness, Mr. Boynton, you're covered with milk. What happened?
Your goat ate so much it exploded all over him.
Miss Enright, Miss Brooks is under the impression that you encouraged Catherine to eat up Mr. Conklin's garden.
Well, that's an utterly fantastic idea. She has absolutely no basis.
Well, there's no use worrying about that now. Anyway, there is still 2 weeks until the contest, and anything can happen in that time.
Correction, darling. There were 2 weeks, but those 2 weeks don't exist anymore.
Don't tell me Catherine ate them up, too.
No, not exactly. I happened to be covering the office for Mr. Conklin during the last period, and Mr. Stone called.
Mr. Stone called?
Yes, Miss Brooks. We had a little small talk. when suddenly, out of a clear blue sky, he decided to hold the garden contest tomorrow instead of waiting 2 weeks.
And I have a pretty good idea who dropped that clear blue sky on my head. Miss Enright, you just reminded me there's one thing I forgot to plant last week.
What's that?
You. In the spirit of friendliness, I suggest you teach that walking garbage disposal not to eat people's hats.
Oh, darling, do you still think Catherine ate your hat? Mr. Boynton, you know goats don't really eat things like that.
Of course they don't. They'd get deathly ill. Now, really, Miss Brooks, I think that you... Hey, what happened to my new straw hat?
What's the straw hat?
If you'll look closely, you'll notice how perfectly the red feather blends with Catherine's tongue.
Hey, the fool goat did eat my hat.
Oh, now, really, Mr. Boynton. Come, Catherine. It's suddenly gotten rather unfriendly in here.
That could also be construed as a burp.
Hey, maybe that fool goat did eat your vegetables at that, Miss Brooks.
Of course she did. But with Mr. Stone judging the school gardens tomorrow, it really doesn't make any difference who's to blame for what. I'm sunk.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll say, why not forget your troubles and help me with my shopping this afternoon? I've got to buy next week's groceries for the cafeteria.
Still, there must be something we could do to... Next week's groceries for the cafeteria?
Mm-hmm. I've got to run down to Tony's produce market and buy $50 worth of celery, lettuce, tomatoes, beets.
Mr. Boynton, would you mind terribly if those vegetables you're going to buy made one stopover between Tony's and the school refrigerator?
One stopover? Where?
In our school garden.
What? Miss Brooks, what are you talking about?
Just this. Before tonight is over, we're going to transform that spot from Conklin's desert oasis to Tony's garden paradise. Well, isn't it dark and peaceful back here, Mr. Boynton? Just you and I and $50 worth of Tony's vegetables.
Yes, it sure is dark tonight. It's lucky we have this flashlight. Have you ever thought what we would have done if that little bulb had gone out?
Constantly. It would have been difficult to plant all those vegetables.
Yes, it would. Frankly, Miss Brooks, I didn't like this whole idea. And if Miss Enright hadn't played that trick on you, I never would have been a party to it.
I realize that, Mr. Boynton, but there was nothing else we could do under the circumstances. Anyway, since most of the vegetables are planted now, let's not think about them anymore. Let's think about us.
Us?
Yes, my hands have been in the ground so much the last hour, they're cold, Mr. Boynton.
Oh, mine are too, Miss Brooks.
Well, let's warm them up, shall we? What would you suggest?
Suggest? How about trotting a couple of laps around the athletic field?
Mr. Boynton, I said my hands are cold, not my feet.
Oh. Well, suppose I just reach across and take... Holy cow, your fingers are freezing, Miss Brooks.
You're holding a bunch of carrots. Mr. Boynton, isn't that another flashlight over there?
Where? Oh, well, you're right, Miss Brooks. Somebody's coming. Oh, we can't be found here.
Not with a hot vegetable garden. Get behind that big oak tree until they pass by.
No, you get behind the oak. I'll get behind the small elm right near it. Now, if we both get behind that oak, we'd have to huddle too close together so as not to be seen.
We're going to miss that elm, aren't we? Oh, I'm certain the oak will hide the two of us easily.
Well, all right, Miss Brooks, but please come along. I only hope whoever that is.
Sure, you must be mistaken, Harriet. I saw no flashlight in the vicinity of my bald vegetable garden.
Oh, I guess it was a firefly then. Can you tell a flashlight from a firefly from a distance, Daddy?
Well, of course. If you can hear it breathing, it's a firefly. There are no fireflies around this time of year, child, and do stop dropping those cucumbers all over the place.
But, Daddy, do you think it's honest, buying all these vegetables and laying them out in your garden just to win a prize?
Well, it's not dishonest. We're merely giving these poor, friendless little vegetables a home for a day or so.
But, Daddy, is it honest?
Harriet, thank goodness you've been brought up to be a good, honest child, and your daddy dearly loves you. But there are times when he devoutly wishes he could trade in his scrupulously honest daughter for a slightly sneaky son.
Daddy,
Now, Harriet, not another word.
Just drop your bag of vegetables in front of that oak tree and start distributing the stuff in even rows.
Well, all right, Daddy.
I'll start planting my tomatoes in this row of 2-foot-high celery, and you start planting your vegetables over there. We'll soon have this barren desert looking like I'll start planting my tomatoes in this row of 2-foot-high celery.
And look at all these beautiful potatoes and beets and onions and radishes.
Oh, what hath heaven wrought? A few short hours ago, a wasteland, barren, denuded, and now this miracle that passeth human understanding. I must be... Harriet, is there a bright, shimmering glow about my head?
Gee, I don't understand how they... Oh, Daddy, that light. Over there's somebody coming.
You're right, child. There is somebody. Great Scott, we mustn't be caught here. Quick, hide behind that elm tree. I'll get behind you. I don't think anyone could see me behind here. Phew. Certainly wouldn't want any of my teachers to know what I was up to tonight. There isn't one of them I could trust to keep my secret.
Not even Mr. Boynton?
No, not even Mr. Boynton. True, he's a just and honest man with a highly developed moral sense, but you can never be certain.
But how about Miss Brooks, sir? She can keep a secret.
Old blabberlip? Why, if she kept a secret bottled up in herself for more than 2 minutes, she'd blow a silly cork.
Oh, I don't know about that, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, well, take my word for it, Miss Brooks. If she ever saw me here in this garden at this hour and knew the scheme I had, take my word for it, Miss Brooks! Yeah! I'm talking to myself.
And that thing you have your arm around is not a branch, but Mr. Boynton.
Hello, Mr. Conklin.
And I suppose this is not really an oak tree, but Miss Perkins of our math department.
Shall we cut our initials in her, sir, and find out?
Shall we close our little traps, Miss Brooks? Oh, Miss Brooks, things are beginning to add up. Then it was you who laid out all those beautiful vegetables.
Yes, sir. It was Brooks that wrought before, not heaven.
Well, since we're all in the same boat, there's nothing. Say, if that person out there with the flashlight is starting to pick up our vegetables.
Why, the hijacker. Who could it be, anyway?
My guess is that it's Jason Brill. He'd stop at nothing to keep that gardening trophy at Clay City High.
But do you think he'd stoop to anything so low?
He has a reputation for being the most unprincipled principal in the country. But we'll hand him the shock of his life. Grab a nice, juicy vegetable, both of you. I'll take this watermelon.
I've got something here that weighs a ton. Must be an oversized squash.
That's my handbag.
All right. Attention. Get ready to jump in. When I give the signal, we charge. Ready now? 1, 2... Geronimo!
Nice work. That's right, Boynton. Hold him by the hair while I shine this light in his face. Oh, God, it's Mr. Stone!
Conklin, stop sitting on my chest this instant.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course. Yes. Oh, Miss Brooks, get up. You're sitting on the head of the board.
Sir, where I'm sitting is a mighty peculiar place for a head. Oh, the head of the board.
Let me help you up, sir. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Stone. We thought, Boynton, you may stop pulling Mr. Stone's hair now. I was just combing out the watermelon seed.
Oh, no, leave them there, Boynton. I love the taste of watermelon as it dribbles down from my forehead, and I catch the drops on my tongue. Conklin, what was the meaning of that dastardly attack by the three of you on my person?
Oh, well, I'm terribly sorry, sir. Terribly sorry. Believe me, sir, we thought you were a vandal. We've had vandals around here lately. That's why we were all here tonight, to stand guard.
But why are you here, sir?
I happened to drop by your home to make sure you'd been informed about my moving up the date for the garden contest, and your wife said I might find you in your office. On the way over, I thought I'd like to take a peek at your garden.
Well, how do you like it, sir?
Well, it's exquisite. It's simply exquisite.
Oh, thank you. Seems only yesterday that all this was just a barren, desolate wasteland.
Matter of fact, it seems like only a half hour ago to me. Do you like the celery, Mr. Stone?
Beautiful, Miss Brooks. I don't believe I've ever seen celery stalks so high. And these cabbages, magnificent, and what in heaven's name is this angry-looking, furry vegetable here, Conklin?
Angry-looking, furry vegetable?
I knew Mrs. Davis would get rid of that stuff somewhere.
And these fruits here look quite familiar to me. Mrs. Stone and I once spent a summer in Hawaii. Conklin, how did you ever get kukui and arrowroot and papaya to grow in this climate?
Well... There's really quite a fascinating story attached to that. Tell him the fascinating story, Miss Brooks.
Yes, sir. It's a fascinating story. Well, we knew ordinary farming methods would never grow us any Hawaiian fruit, so we watered the ground here daily with pineapple juice.
Oh, really now? And tell me, Miss Brooks, how did you manage to grow a fruit with a little tag on the bottom saying, "Welcome to beautiful Hawaii"?
Well, frankly, sir, those tags, "Welcome to Hawaii," were just sent to the three.
Now, Anacin, the tablets thousands of physicians and dentists recommend for fast relief of pain of headache, neuritis, neuralgia, and heat. The liniment that's strong yet does not burn. Present Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. It's time once again for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks transcribed. But first, if you suffer from the pains of a headache, we urge you to try the remarkable product this program features, Anacin. Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Anacin contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients. The relief these tablets bring is not only effective, but often incredibly fast. Many of you, I know, first discovered Anacin through your own dentist or physician. But if you have not yet used Anacin, we urge you to try these tablets the next time you are in pain from a headache, neuritis, or neuralgia. You'll be delighted with the results. Try Anacin on this guarantee. If the first few tablets do not give you all the relief you want, as fast as you want it, return the unused portion and your money will be refunded. You can get Anacin at any drug counter. It's spelled A-N-A-C-I-N. Easy to take Anacin tablets come in handy boxes of 12 and 30 and economical family-size bottles of 50 and 100. One of the problems almost every city and town is faced with is the overcrowded conditions of our public schools. Our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, is keenly aware of the situation.
Yes, indeed. In fact, my classroom is so crowded, it's a shame to waste it on children. Last Thursday morning before class, Walter Denton was helping me bring in additional chairs to accommodate my extra students.
That'll be enough chairs, Miss Brooks. How many students do you have in your first class?
I don't know, Walter, but every time I stand up in front of them, I feel like I'm calling play ball at the Yankee Stadium. No, by actual count, there are 48.
Yeah, but there are only 47 chairs.
I know. Unless we dig up another, I'm afraid one of my English students will have to open the window and sit outside.
May I?
No, you may not. I was only fooling.
See, I wasn't. With all due respect to your remarkable talents as a teacher, English isn't exactly my favorite subject, Miss Brooks. Sometimes it practically anesthetizes me.
And perhaps that explains why you managed to sleep through it like a baby. Help me move this desk back a bit, will you?
Sure. Yeah. Easy does it.
There, that'll give us just enough room to squeeze in one more chair. I don't know what I'll do if any more students are assigned to this dinky classroom of mine, Walter.
Hey, I've got an idea. You know how large Mr. Boynton's biology lab is, Miss Brooks? Why don't you double up with him? I mean, each of you could utilize half the lab in teaching your respective subjects. You know, sharing a desk right smack in the middle, see?
I see, but it wouldn't be practical.
Maybe not, but wouldn't it be romantic? You and Mr. Boynton, side by side. You could take out the desk and put in a love seat.
And by, we might even set up light housekeeping in a test tube. No, it's a nice thought, Walter, but not practical. Come in.
Good morning, teacher.
How are you, teacher? I'm Mike.
I'm Danny. Me and Mike are twins. I'm 8 years old.
I'm 8 years old, too. Me and Danny don't like grammar school.
We decided to go to high school. Where do we sit?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you? I don't quite understand this, children.
Isn't that cute? They decided to go to high school.
Quiet, Walter. Now, listen, Mike.
I'm Danny.
All right, listen, Danny. You can't merely decide to go to high school.
Why can't we?
Well, you just can't. Not until you've received your grammar school diploma.
We should live so long.
Oh, come now. You kids are just starting out in life. There's a long road ahead. If you're only 8 years old...
How old are you?
You should live so long. Now, tell me, there must be some very important reason behind your seeking this educational shortcut, boys.
It's a matter of life and death.
Well, that figures, but what is it?
Me and Danny want to be policemen.
So we found out you can't be policemen till you get out of high school.
So we want to get out of high school.
How do you like that, Miss Brooks? They want to get out of high school.
And don't laugh. They're liable to beat you out by several semesters.
We watch cops and robbers on television most every night, Miss Brooks. So that's what we really want to be.
Not the robbers, the cops.
Well, I'm glad you're with the good guys instead of the bad guys. But let's start from the beginning, shall we? What's your last name, Mike?
I'm Danny.
All right, Danny, what's your last name?
Ask Mike.
All right, Mike, what's your last name?
We ain't talking.
You're not talking. Ain't is a vulgarism frowned upon as a grammatical... What do you mean you ain't talking?
Just that. There's a good reason why our last name has got to remain a mystery, Miss Brooks. We just can't tell you.
And it won't do you no good to pump us, either. If you try to put the screws on us, we'll just clam up until the heat's off.
They have been watching television. Look, boys, if you refuse to identify yourselves properly, I'll have to report you to the police. In a case like this, I've got to think of your parents. They'll be greatly concerned. Now, why not simplify things and tell me who you are?
Sorry.
What do you think we are, stoolies?
Let me try to reason with him, Miss Brooks. Now, listen, fellas.
Pipe down, Buster. We'd rather discuss this matter with an adult.
Well, yeah, sure. I just thought that...
Bang, bang, you're dead.
Huh? Don't worry. Bang, bang, you're alive again. You'd better run over to the principal's office, Walter, and tell Mr. Conklin to inform the police.
Yeah, okay, Miss Brooks. You better come clean, fellas. See you later.
I'm sorry, boys, but that's what you get for not telling me about yourselves. Now you'll have to deal with the bulls.
Well, I guess we could tell you a little, Miss Brooks. Me and Mike, well, we escaped from the orphanage.
You're orphans?
Sure. I ain't even got no parents.
I ain't got no parents either.
No parents?
Who needs them?
Well, that's the attitude to take, of course. Who needs them?
We're not babies anymore.
Oh, I should say not. You're big and strong. Now, tell me something. Have you men had breakfast yet?
No, ma'am.
Well, we'll soon fix that. I brought a box lunch to school today, and you're welcome to it. Here we are. First, some milk. I'll pour it into these paper cups for you. You don't mind paper cups, do you?
I like them better than I like the milk.
Well, nevertheless, you'll drink it. If you're going to be policemen, you've got to build strong, healthy bodies. Here you are. Now dive into the lunchbox.
Oh, but that wouldn't be fair, Miss Brooks. I don't want to take your lunch.
I'll take it.
And you'll both take it. But you fellows caught me unprepared. All I have is some boiled ham and a few slices of bread.
You can keep the bread. I'm cutting down on starches.
Thanks. Look, Look, men, you've got to tell me more. You're orphans, you say, hmm?
Yes, ma'am. Nobody loves us.
Oh, now, please don't cry, Mike.
I'm Danny.
Well, now, policemen don't cry. Besides, it isn't true that no one loves you. Why, I love you, and I bet lots of other folks do, too.
Nobody does.
Pretty good ham.
Thanks. Come on, Danny, sit on my lap, and I'll dry those tears for you. Up you go. There, do you feel better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Brooks, can I sit on your other lap?
My other lap? You finish the bread, Danny. I'm cutting down on starches, too. Good morning, Mr. Conklin.
Be seated. Miss Brooks, may I present...
Gillis, Sergeant Police, Missing Persons Investigating.
Yes. Sergeant Gillis, may I present...
Brooks, Miss, Teacher, English, sitting.
Yes. Won't you sit down, Sergeant?
Thanks. I am a bit weary. Been up all night on a missing persons case, a very important one to me.
To you?
Yes, I'm trying to locate my wife. She disappeared last night. I just sent out an all-points bulletin on her when I received a call from Mr. Conklin.
Well, I certainly hope you locate her.
So do I, but one case at a time, if you please. I gave Sergeant Gillis the facts as furnished me by Walter Denton, a general description of Mike and Danny, plus the fact that the brats refused to divulge the name of their parents.
But they have no parents, sir. They confessed to me that they escaped from an orphanage.
Poor little Ty. Orphan.
They're still in my classroom, Sergeant, room 104. I'll take you there now.
It's all right. I'll find it. I'd like a minute alone with them, if you don't mind, Miss Brooks. Excuse me now.
Oh, surely. Well, leave it to a policeman to put on a clever disguise.
Disguise?
Yes, even though his wife left him, he still looks miserable.
All right, boys, let's have your story.
We ain't talking, Copper.
I told you never to call me Copper, Mike. That goes for you, too, Danny.
Don't get excited, Dad. How come you're not surprised to find us here?
Well, Mr. Conklin described you to me over the phone. I've met some mischievous kids in my life, but you boys take the cake. Now, what are you doing here?
Gee whiz, Pop. You told us we couldn't start being a policeman like you till we got out of high school.
So we decided to go to high school and get it over with.
Well, what about grammar school?
We'd prefer to eliminate the middleman.
And what about your telling Miss Brooks that you escaped from an orphanage? You've never even seen an orphanage.
Danny made that one up. I just went along with the gag.
I should have suspected. So you're up to your old tricks again, huh, Danny? I've been wise to him for a long time.
Don't be angry, Daddy. Please don't be angry with me.
And I'm also wise to that phony crying routine.
Oh, okay. Well, what's new, Dad?
You know what's new. Your mother left me.
Let's give him the lowdown, Mike. I feel sorry for him.
Okay. Listen, Pop. Mom made us promise not to tell you this. Like she made Grandma promise when she phoned her yesterday.
She told Grandma that instead of paying attention to her, he'd just sit around all night watching cops and robbers on television.
She said she's become a television widow.
So, she decided to leave home for a week to teach you a lesson.
To teach me a lesson? Well, what do you know? Where is she now?
Well, she gave us her number and told us to call her every day so she wouldn't be worried about us. We talked to her this morning. She's fine.
Okay, the number. What is it? Spill it, boy. Spill it.
Not so fast. Giving you the number depends on whether or not you play ball with us. See what I'm driving at, Daddy?
Sure. We kind of like high school, Dad. It's fun being around big kids instead of little punks. Now, it's up to you to play along with us and let us stay here as long as possible. If you don't, we won't give you the number and you won't see Mom for a whole week.
Well, this is blackmail.
We got you over a barrel, Pop. Play ball or else.
No, just a minute.
Well, is everything under control now, Sergeant?
Sure, Miss Brooks. Tell her what you decided, Sergeant Gillis.
Well, Miss Brooks,
My heart goes out to these little orphans. While I'm conducting an investigation, I want these children to remain here with you.
With me? Isn't that a very unusual procedure?
Believe me, these are very unusual children.
Well, I'm sorry, but my classroom is overcrowded as it is. You'll have to take them with you.
We little orphans want to be with you, Miss Brooks. You're so kind, so affectionate, so wonderful.
Well, now, look, Mike.
And you're so beautiful. So downright beautiful.
Like I say, Sarge, you'll take these kids over my dead body.
Friends, when agonizing pain of rheumatism, muscle strain, or backache makes you miserable and every move is a torment, that's the time to reach for HEAT. H-E-E-T. HEAT, the liniment that's strong yet does not burn. The moment you apply it, you can feel HEAT's soothing warmth working to relieve your painful miseries. That's because HEAT penetrates deep, brings immediate relief to sore, aching muscles. Wherever you ache, just brush on HEAT. HEAT penetrates deep, keeps working for hours to bring wonderful, soothing comfort to the painful, aching area. Your pain seems to disappear. HEAT isn't oily, sticky, or messy. You just brush on HEAT with a handy applicator that comes with each bottle, and it dries in seconds. So remember, when pain of rheumatism, muscle strain, or backache makes you miserable, HEAT's penetrating warmth gives you fast, long-lasting relief. Get HEAT, H-E-E-T. HEAT, the liniment that penetrates deep to bring immediate relief. Well, Miss Brooks is still oblivious to the fact that Police Sergeant Gillis is actually the father of the mischief makers Mike and Danny, who at this moment are lunching in the office of Mr. Conklin. Meanwhile, since the boys had previously devoured the lunch she had brought to school, Miss Brooks is economically dining in the cafeteria with Mr. Boynton. I think
You're just having soup, Miss Brooks?
Well, I'm not really hungry, Mr. Boynton.
Oh, well, would you like some crackers?
Just a dozen or so. I brought my own bread.
That's no meal for a working girl. Let me order for you, Miss Brooks. I'll go to the steam table and get what you want.
What I want, they don't have at the steam table. Really, Mr. Boynton, I'm too exhausted to gorge myself. It's been a rough morning.
Yeah, I've had a rough morning myself. Those two little boys dropped into my lab. You should have seen the big tears in Danny's eyes. He told me that the principal of the orphanage they were in never gave them anything to eat but a stale crust of bread.
What? But that's cruel. Oh, it can't be true.
Oh, you've seen the halos of innocence in Danny's eyes, Miss Brooks. How can you possibly infer that that boy would stoop to lying?
I'm ashamed of myself. He's an angel. And so is Mike. That barbaric orphanage principal has started something, and I'm going to finish it. Get up, Mr. Boynton. We're going to discuss the matter with Mr. Conklin at once.
Yeah, but what about my lunch?
I'll finish that while you're getting up. Hello, Harriet. Walter?
Hi, folks.
We'd like to see Mr. Conklin, Harriet.
Well, Daddy's in his inner office feeding Mike and Danny right now, Mr. Boynton. I'll go tell him you're here.
Oh, you should have been in first period English class this morning, Mr. Boynton. It was a scream. Miss Brooks gave us a test, and she let Mike and Danny take it along with us.
Well, it was nothing to bewilder them. Merely a refresher test on certain fundamentals that are covered in grammar school.
Oh, I think Danny is smart as a whip. What did he score in the test, Miss Brooks?
38. Mike got the same.
Yeah, Mike was sitting right near Danny, Mr. Boynton. Of course, I'm not insinuating that he copied from Danny's paper, but even so, 38 is a pretty good score for kids. What did I get in the test, Miss Brooks?
27.
27?
Well, that was on my own. I wasn't sitting near either of them. I met him later in the hall, though, Miss Brooks, and gosh, Danny told me something terrible. You should have seen the big tears in his eyes.
More tears? What did the Johnny Ray of Madison High tell you, Walter?
Well, every day the orphanage principal used to beat him and Mike with a horsewhip.
Good heavens.
The monster.
A horsewhip?
Oh, steady, Daddy. Steady now.
Prisoners. Chain gang.
gad. Danny told me the whole story. You should have seen the big tears in his eyes. That orphanage principal, I'd like to strangle him with my bare hands.
Well, a principal's a principal. I mean, what did he do, sir?
When those kids weren't scrubbing floors, he had them out on the rock pile.
The rock pile?
The monster.
He should be taken for a ride.
In your car.
Despite my gentle pumping, they still refuse to reveal the name of the orphanage.
Well, naturally. They're afraid they'll be sent back there and treated even worse for squealing.
Well, Sergeant Gillis will probably get the truth when he visits them at your house this evening, Miss Brooks. Maybe he'll send them to a more humane orphanage.
No, not a chance. He'll send them back where they came from. Everything's routine with some policemen. You know how they work. You come from Joe Blow Orphanage, buddy? Well, back you go to Joe Blow. It's cut and dried.
My friends, I always wanted a boy. I've got a good mind to adopt them.
That's the answer. As soon as they're sent back to the orphanage, Mr. Conklin can file papers. Now, how long does it take to adopt a child?
About a year longer than it takes to have one of your own.
No solution. No, we've got to dream up some delaying action so that we can keep those kids here while we're presenting the facts to higher authorities than the police.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court if it'll help. But how can we prevent Sergeant Gillis from carting them off tonight?
Well, I've got an angle, Daddy. The police won't touch them if you can produce someone who will pose temporarily as their mother or father.
Pose as their mother or father, but that could lead to serious consequences, Harriet. We're not that desperate yet. Now, take Mike's milk into him, will you?
I'll take it, Harriet. Excuse me.
Hi, Miss Brooks.
Hello, man. Here's your milk, Mike.
Thanks.
And if you want anything else, just holler.
Boy, what a fuss they're making over us. Yeah, this orphan racket is pretty good. Sure beats having parents. Ouch! What's the matter? Oh, I burned my arm on the heater. It's nothing. I'm going and get me some milk. May I have some milk, please?
Well, of course you may. Here you are, Mike.
I'm Danny. Thanks. I'll see you later.
Just a minute. What's that red mark on your arm, Danny?
Red mark? Oh, this. I'd rather not tell you, Miss Brooks. Please don't ask me.
Well, what is it, boy?
Yes.
You've got to tell us, Danny. What happened?
Well, yesterday I didn't get up early enough to clean the incinerator, so the orphanage principal stuck a cigarette butt in my arm.
You run along and join your brother like a good little boy. Toddle along now, Danny.
Yes, sir.
Stuck his cigarette butt in the child's arm.
Our Miss Brooks will return in a moment. If you own one of the 26 million car radios, you may be lending an ear as you drive along the highways. If you're listening to one of the 10 million sets located in public places, like bus stations, hotel lobbies, and the like, you may take in some or all of CBS Radio's weekday evening favorites on one of the 10 million. If you're like most folks, owning at least one of these 75 million radio sets people have in their homes, why, chances are you're fairly regular in tuning in our weekday evening stars. Whichever way you choose, CBS Radio's nighttime stars are yours to command, yours to enjoy. The Bing Crosby Show, Monday through Friday nights. The Amos and Andy Music Hall, also 5 evenings a week. The Tennessee Ernie Show, now 3/4 of an hour of fun each evening on most of these stations. And that refreshing newcomer, Fred Robbins' Disc Derby, heard Tuesday through Friday nights on CBS Radio. There's music, there's fun, there's sparkling entertainment, and plenty of it. Weekday evenings, too, at the Star's address. Everyone is still unaware that Mike and Danny are Sergeant Gillis' sons, and that their stories of a horrible life at the orphanage are entirely trumped up. At home later that evening, Miss Brooks had just about reached a decision.
I took the ice cream out of the deep freeze, Connie. Are Mike and Danny enjoying the dinner?
Very much, Mrs. Davis. Well, how do you like the kids?
They're precious, Connie. I don't blame you for falling in love with them. But I suppose Sergeant Gillis will be coming over any minute now to take them away.
Yes. You know, he couldn't take them if one of their parents were here. Mrs. Davis, I've come to a decision. It's a desperate move, but I've got to risk it.
What are you going to do?
Well, there's no time to explain now. Excuse me.
Hi, Miss Brooks. Dinner is swell.
Pretty good ham. Say, what are those papers on the table, Miss Brooks?
My class's homework. You can work on it after dinner if you like.
Gee, thanks. High school homework. Wow.
You sure been nice to us, Miss Brooks. I wish we could stay with you forever.
Now, please, Danny, no more tears. There's enough water in the milk now. But maybe you can stay with me, for a little while at least. I have a scheme, and if it meets with your approval...
A scheme? What is it, Miss Brooks?
I want to tell Sergeant Gillis that I'm your mother.
Sergeant Gillis? You want to tell him you're our mother?
That's right. What do you think of it?
I think it's great. Ought to be fun, huh, Mike?
This I gotta see.
Now, boys, I'd like to speak with him alone as soon as he arrives. There he is now. You run along into the kitchen. Mrs. Davis has some ice cream for you.
Ice cream? Boy.
Come in. The latch is off. Oh, good evening, Sergeant Gillis.
Oh, Miss Brooks, Mike and Danny here?
Well, naturally. After all, this is their home.
Their home?
Of course. We've just finished dinner. I told you this morning, but evidently your memory's a bit foggy.
Well, let me get this straight, Miss Brooks. I'm talking about Mike and Danny.
So am I. Sergeant, I'm their mother.
You're their mother?
That's right.
Miss Brooks, my memory isn't that foggy. If you told me that this morning, believe me, I'd have remembered. You said they'd been in an orphanage.
Well, it's not something I like to discuss, but the truth is, I lost them one day while I was shopping.
What?
But now that I've found them again, nothing will ever part us. Nothing.
Now, this case has developed interesting aspects, Miss Brooks. I believe I'll take you down to headquarters for questioning.
Who, me? Oh, now, just a minute.
Miss Brooks, where's Mike and Danny?
Oh, Mr. Boynton. Sergeant Gillis, my husband.
Husband?
You don't know it, buddy, but she's the mother of your twins.
You don't want the police to take our children, do you, dear?
Why, certainly not. Wifey.
Now, look, I'll try to be calm. Your name is Boynton, and her name is Brooks. How can she be your wife?
I married her when I was very young.
Say that again, and I'll be a widow. Don't you see, Sergeant? I teach under the name of Brooks, but actually my name
Good
is...
evening.
What do you want, Walter?
I came over for my sons, Mike and Danny.
Sergeant Gillis, meet my other husband.
2 husbands?
One for each child. Well, that's logical, isn't it?
We're going to headquarters. Everybody. Now, you fellows move on ahead. Here, I'll take your arm, Miss Brooks.
Take your hands off my wife, you cur!
Miss Brooks, just how many husbands have you got?
Well, let's wait till all the precincts are in.
She is the mother of my Mike and Danny, and I, Osgood Conklin, am her only husband.
You're going to lead the way to headquarters, Chubby. Now, come on.
Oh, excuse us, folks.
Mike, Danny.
My sons.
My offspring.
Come over here and sit on your daddy's lap, boys.
That's right. Go over and sit on one of your daddy's laps.
Miss Brooks, we just looked over that homework that high school kids have to do.
We decided to go back to grammar school in the morning.
I'll say you're going back. You're coming with me right now.
Okay, Pop.
Pop?
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 Somebody's sticking cigarette butts in balloons.
Gillis, That boy called you Pop.
Yeah, only because I'm his father.
What? We just talked to Mom on the phone, Pop. She said she misses you too much, so she's going home, and all is forgiven.
Well, what do you know? In that case, folks, you're all forgiven. Come along, boys.
Just a minute. How about exchanging explanations?
Well, I'll give you a ring later on, Miss Brooks. You don't have to be a detective to know that this entire misunderstanding can be traced to the sob story kid here. Come along, Danny boy.
Yes, Daddy.
Bye, folks. Yeah, thanks for the ham.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? If you like a room full of idiots. I think I'll go to the window and wave goodbye to the little darling. Oh, isn't that cute? They stopped on the front lawn, and Sergeant Gillis just lifted Danny up and put him across his knees.
Across his knees?
Yes, now the sergeant's raising his hand. Now the hand's coming down. Well, what do you know?
Well, what is it, Miss Brooks?
At last, those big tears are for real.
Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, transcribed, was produced and directed by Larry Burns, written by Joe Quillen and Al Lewis, with the music of Bud Gluskin. Mr. Conklin was played by Gail Gordon. Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Bob Rockwell, Gloria McMillan, Harry Shearer, Stuffy Singer, and Joel Samuels. Be sure to be with us next week for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks.
It might have come addressed to Dorothy Kimberly.
Dorothy Kimberly? Nothing came for anyone by that name. But who's Dorothy Kimberly?
That's me.
Now, sit right there, and I'll bring you a glass of water and some Anison.
Mrs. Davis, it's really very simple. In an article in a magazine, I'm Mrs. Kimberly. You see, I'm married. I mean, she's married. Oh, it's Connie Brooks I'm not married, but it's Connie Kimberly. Dorothy Brooks. That is, in the article, we both are. Make that a glass of water and 2 Anison.
Poor Connie, you are confused, aren't you?
Oh, no more than Dr. Jekyll confused Mr. Hyde. I'd better start at the beginning, Mrs. Davis. You remember that guest speaker I got last month? The author who lectured at school on the opportunities in the field of writing?
Oh, yes. Wasn't he the nice man who came over for dinner afterward? And when he left, most of our silverware was missing.
Oh, no. You're thinking of the fellow who lectured on the influence of crime shows on our children. Anyway, we recovered most of the stuff. But the writer I'm referring to mentioned that True Family Romances was paying $50 for stories concerning unusual family problems.
Oh, I see.
Well, I didn't tell you about it, Mrs. Davis, but that's when I became Dorothy Kimberly. That very day, I sat down and wrote an article entitled, I Am the Mother of a Quiz Kid.
My, there are a lot of things you haven't told me about. How old is your little youngster?
65, and he's now leading a retired life in Hoboken, New Jersey. Mrs. Davis, I'm not really the mother of a quiz kid.
Well, if you say so, dear. But I saw a copy of that magazine lying around a few days ago, and I read your story. You know, I enjoyed it almost as much as the one by Sarah Doolittle.
Oh, yes, the one called Bringing Up My Dopey Son.
Poor Sarah Doolittle, how she suffered. You should thank goodness, Connie, that your boy turned out so brilliant.
Well, I had a very intelligent typewriter. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mrs. Davis, I'd better be leaving for school. Oh, I'll get it. Hello?
Hello, this is Mr. Nemo, the editor of True Family Romances. Is Mrs. Dorothy Kimberly there?
No, I'm afraid you have the wrong... Oh, yes, she's here. I'm here. We're here, all of us. I was expecting your check in the mails, Mr. Nemo. Are you certain you put a stamp on the envelope?
That's precisely why I called, Mrs. Kimberly. You see, our magazine has instituted a new policy of checking on the facts in all our stories before making payments.
Checking on the facts?
Friends, if you suffer from acid indigestion, I hope you didn't miss reading this wonderful news. A headline that says, New mints, medically proven, quickly rid stomach of gastric distress. That headline is talking about new Bicidol mints. Doctors recommend Bicidol mints because the Bicidol medication acts at once to make painful acid harmless and gives you fast 5-way relief. 1, speeds relief from gas. 2, sweetens your breath. 3, gives complete, longer-lasting relief than baking soda. 4, relieves stomach upset from too much eating, drinking, smoking. 5, lets you sleep when acid indigestion strikes at night. So don't suffer acid indigestion, heartburn, or gastric distress from excess acidity. Remember, new mints, medically proven, quickly rid stomach of gastric distress. And remember the name, Bicidol mints. Bisodol. Get Bicidol mints for fast relief. Well, Miss Brooks is in quite a dilemma. At 8 o'clock tonight, Mr. Nemo, editor of True Family Romances, is due over at her house to verify whether she really is the mother of a quiz kid. And 5 minutes later, Mr. Conklin is coming over with some typing work. Since the magazine has been declared out of bounds, if Mr. Nemo and Mr. Conklin cross paths tonight, Miss Brooks is in danger of suspension. And with Mr. Conklin, that could mean from a tree. Just before noon, Madison High's principal was busy at his desk when his phone rang.
Hello, principal's office. The principal himself speaking. Speak quickly, please. I lunch in 2 minutes, and I'm famished.
Excuse me, sir, but am I speaking to a school?
Don't be ridiculous, sir. You're speaking to a man. Oh, yes. Yes, this is Madison High School. Who is this?
My name is Mr. Nemo, Joshua Nemo. I'm from True Family Romances. I have a check for a Sarah Doolittle. Does she work at your school?
Sarah Doolittle. Excuse me a moment, please. Now then, I am Sarah Doolittle.
Look here, I don't have time for joking.
Oh, I'm not joking. Sarah Doolittle is the name I use on my articles. It's my wife's name. I'm Osgood Doolittle. Now, you may forward the $50 check for my current article.
Just a moment, Mr. Doolittle. Because of a little difficulty we've had recently, our current policy is to withhold checks until after we've verified the facts in an article. Well, shall I? Yes. While I'm in town, I'd like to have a little chat with you and that quiz kid son of yours. Also with another one of our authors who lives in your vicinity, Sarah Doolittle. Now, what time would it be most convenient for me to drop around and see your son?
In about 15 years. I'm afraid little Joel will be unavailable for interviews today, Mr. Nemo. He's busy writing a child's version of Einstein's theory of relativity. Why don't you drop back some other year? A time.
Well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Kimberly. I'm going to be in town only one day, and unless I verify your story, there will be no payment.
Like I say, Mr. Nemo, drop around any time tonight.
Fine. I'll see you at 8 o'clock, Mrs. Kimberly. Goodbye.
Goodbye. $50. Oh, Mrs. Davis, this is terrible.
Goodness, Connie, are you in trouble? Is there anything I can do, dear?
No, I'm afraid not, Mrs. Davis. No matter how we tried, I doubt if we could pass you off as a bright little boy.
But, Daddy, I put 2 days of hard work into that article about you and Mother. And anyway, I wouldn't have sent it into True Family Romances without your permission. You had absolutely no right to tear it up.
Oh, didn't I, though? Harriet, I will not have my daughter writing for a cheap, trashy, fourth-grade publication whose current cover features the spectacle of a husband clasping his wife to his bosom with one hand and brandishing a meat cleaver with the other.
But, Daddy, all the other kids were writing articles for the magazine about their
And
parents.
that's exactly why a number of parents have been complaining to the head of the board about their lives being invaded, and why Mr. Stone has been pointing the finger of unemployment at me.
Well, it certainly isn't fair for Mr. Stone to blame you.
Well, of course it isn't, particularly since your precious Miss Brooks brought that lecturer here in the first place. Oh, what did I do to deserve that woman? Some men occasionally get a view of heavenly paradise here on earth, but fate has sent me Miss Brooks to show me what it looks like elsewhere.
Well, it actually isn't her fault either, Daddy. She only books the lecturers.
Quiet. I think I see Miss Brooks clumping up the walk now. If you'll excuse me, Harriet, I want a word alone with Madison's crazy, mixed-up lecture bureau. Kindly depart through my inner office, child.
But, Daddy, can't I just wait?
Meander, minx.
All right.
Well, Miss Brooks should be through the front doors by now. Now she should be...
Now, Anacin, the tablets thousands of physicians and dentists recommend for fast relief of pain of headache, neuritis, neuralgia, and Bicidol mints that quickly rid stomach of gastric distress, present Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. It's time once again for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks, transcribed. But first, today many thousands of people are thankful to their physicians or dentists for first having introduced them to that remarkable preparation called Anacin, which brings such incredibly fast and effective relief from the pains of headaches, neuritis, and neuralgia. Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Anacin contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients in easy-to-take tablet form. Thus, in using Anacin, you are following sound principles. So ask for Anacin at your drug counter next time you suffer pains from headaches, neuritis, or neuralgia. Try these tablets on this guarantee. If you don't feel Anacin gives you all the relief you want, as fast as you want it, your money will be refunded. Easy-to-take Anacin tablets are available everywhere in handy boxes of 12 and 30, and economical family-size bottles of 50 and 100. I'll repeat the name for you, Anacin. A-N-A-C-I-N. From time to time, our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High, has supplemented her meager bank account by writing articles for some of the country's leading publications.
Yes, indeed. Last year alone, I cracked the Hobo News, the Muscle Builders Gazette, and the American Plumbers Quarterly. But of all my articles, I was proudest of the one which appeared last week in True Family Romances, entitled, I Am the Mother of a Quiz Kid. Of course, I wrote this true family romance story under the assumed name of Dorothy Kimberly, and for 3 good reasons. 1, the story was not true. 2, I don't have a family. And 3, with Mr. Boynton for a boyfriend, I have very little romance. There was a 4th reason, too. If our beloved principal, Mr. Conklin, ever found my name in a magazine like that, I'm afraid mine would be just another friendly face on the unemployment line. By Thursday morning, my $50 check was long overdue from the magazine, so I thought I'd better ask my landlady if any mail had come for me that I didn't know about. Mrs. Davis...
Connie, I brought home several wallpaper samples from the store. Which of these do you like best for the living room?
Mrs. Davis, I expect a check.
No, dear, a check design makes me dizzy.
Walking toward this office. Come back here, Miss Brooks.
Oh, yes, sir. It's a nice day, sir.
I doubt it. With you so close, there must be a monsoon brewing in the vicinity. Miss Brooks, why is it everything you touch turns to ulcers?
Why, sir? Have I done something wrong?
That's like asking, will dawn come up tomorrow? Miss Brooks, since you invited that madman here to encourage the literary efforts of our students last month, they have been besieging True Family Romances with a mountain of garbage. And Mr. Stone has placed the whole thing squarely on my doorstep.
Well, I'll call the Department of Sanitation at once and have them take it away. Oh, you mean Mr. Stone has been complaining to you?
Complaining? Why, yesterday he couldn't have called me more often if we were sweethearts. He told me he put 3 students at Clay City High on probation and suspended a history teacher simply for contributing stories to that awful magazine. Can you imagine what he'd do if an article were published?
Yes, I can, but it's too late for me to make the help wanted page in today's paper. I believe I can.
Needless to say, if another one of my students or any member of my faculty contributes to that publication, I will recommend immediate dismissal. You may go now, Miss Brooks.
How far? Yes.
Oh, I almost forgot. One more thing before you leave. I've just finished my monthly report for Mr. Stone. Will you have any time to type it up for me during school hours?
No, sir, I haven't got a minute today.
I thought not. Therefore, I arranged to be at your house tonight at 8. You can type it then.
At 8? Tonight? Oh, no, sir. 8's a very bad time. I can't possibly make it at 8. I have an appointment with my optometrist about my eyes.
Oh, you do love to put up a fight, don't you?
Please, Mr. Conklin, make it earlier or later. Say 10 o'clock. Can you come over then? How's 10 o'clock?
I'll tell you what we'll do, Miss Brooks. I want to be at your house at 8. You want me to be there at 10, so we'll compromise.
Oh, good, good. Compromise, that's it. Compromise. Thank you, sir.
I'll be there at 8:05.
But, sir...
I'll be there at 8:05, Miss Brooks. Now, is there anything I can do for you before I come over?
No, sir. Even if you shaved off your mustache and wore short pants, you wouldn't do either.